what you get once you know the NLP skills is ways of learning really quickly. And not only learning really quickly, but embodying the learning. When I did my NLP practitioner course, I actually thought I hadn't learned anything. I thought I just had so much fun that it was better than a holiday. But I honestly and truly didn't know that I'd learned anything. It took me 9 months to realize what I had learned. That's the truth. Every day I would do something and go, oh my goodness, I didn't know I could do that. Now that's a pretty extraordinary thing to happen. But you see, it does depend on what you notice. It depends on your filters and where you're putting your attention. And on this weekend, what I want you to do is really turn on your listening. I know we're working on voice, but in order to manipulate what you can do, in order to be able to do something different, you have to listen to your voice. You have to listen to your own voice and other people's voices. And I'm going to be giving you some good distinctions this weekend that you may not have thought about before. Because the distinctions that you make are going to make the difference to how you tweak what you're doing. And sometimes it's really something fairly simple that you just need to realize. I can't tell you how often people have come to me and said, my voice is too quiet. I hear this a lot. My voice is too quiet. I stand up at work to give a presentation and my voice is too quiet. And that's not the problem at all. The problem is that they're not opening their mouth enough. So even though the volume is perfectly good enough, the sound doesn't get out. Look what happens when I don't open my mouth. Okay? So if I'm tense and my jaw is clamped shut and I'm not using the muscles very much, it's much harder to hear me, isn't it? So let's start. I want to know, where did you get your voice from, what it's for, and what it is that would be useful to do here. You've all come here with something in mind. And by the way, congratulations. Congratulations for realizing that your voice is enough of a magnificent tool to make it worthwhile to know more about it, so you can do more with it. Where do you get your voice? What is your voice? What's it for? What's it doing? Let's have some feedback. This is an interactive course, by the way. We're going to be talking to each other a lot. It's one of the reasons I wanted this to be a small course, because I want to be able to work with all of you and make sure that each of you gets what you want from this weekend. And for those people that are watching this DVD, I want you to get what you want out of this DVD too. So now let's come back to where you got your voice from. So you copied your family. If your family was quiet, maybe you were quiet too. If your family was quiet, maybe you decided to be loud. I get that too, polarity responders. So I get people who come to me with their voices are too quiet, but they had a really loud family and they had good hearing. So they found that offensive. They found that didn't feel good. So what they did was the opposite thing. But after your family, then what? And what happens? Think about it. School. Okay. So the next thing is you go to school. And in every school there is a vocal culture. In fact, in every organization there is a vocal culture. There is the way that people speak within a group. And most people want to either fit in or stand out from the group. And using your voice, making it sound similar to the other people in that group is a really good way of integrating yourself into a group. Knowing how to match other people's voice styles is going to be very helpful when you want to set up rapport. So, do you think then it might be useful to listen to voices which you really like, doing things that are really useful, and then just copying them? Simple. Very easy to do. So I want you to listen not only to my voice on this weekend, but to each other's voice, because everybody has some vocal strengths. And I'm going to be very interested to discover what your vocal strengths are. Most people focus on what they don't like about their voices, but I want to know what you do like, what's serving you well, because that's really worth acknowledging and being aware of so that you know what you can do easy, without any effort at all. And then you can work on the other bits. And that's what we're going to be doing. So your voice comes from, first of all, your family, second of all, your school, and third, the people that you hang out with and the people that you work with, the university that you went to. There are vocal cultures everywhere. Okay, good. We can do groups of 4, and I'd like you to get into a group with 3 other people and just talk about what your home vocal culture was, what your school vocal culture was, so that you start to get to know how you got the voice you had. So I want you to spend just 10 minutes together and just track back through how you got your voice.
So when I did talk, I had a terrible lisp and I couldn't say S's or R's, and I can still do it, it sounds funny. But and then I started fixing it up when I was about 13 or 14. I got to high school, but I spoke very quietly and very slow.
Did you find anything interesting out?
Yes.
Yes. See, one of the reasons I wanted you to do that exercise is to start to realise the programming that's already in there, because some of it's going to be useful and some of it not. So, you know, perhaps some of you realise that you came from a very quiet background and now you're here because you're trying to work out how to have a louder voice. You know, let's make sure that old beliefs and old patterns don't get in the way of becoming more effective. Something came up in the exercises which I think is really important. In fact, it's so important that I even put a page in the manual about it. And that is that sometimes we make judgments about people based on the sound of their voice. And you know what? We make judgments very quick when we meet somebody. If you have to stand up and give a presentation, people will make a judgment about you within 30 seconds. And what that does is it sets the filters for how they then listen to you. Somebody did a piece of research. His name was Morabian, M. Argyle. And they discovered that in this particular case, that what people were processing was 55% based on what they saw, 38% on the tones of voice, and only 7% on the content. Now, that's a statistic. So let's just say something about statistics. Statistics are interesting. They're not facts of life. You don't need to generalize that to every situation because it's not always true. For example, when you're on the telephone, you know it's not true then because they only have the content and the sound of your voice to make their decisions and judgments from. But this particular statistic was got in a very specific circumstance with a very specific group of people being asked very particular questions. So take it with a pinch of salt. Do me a favour, the content is important. Of course it's important. But you know what? There's some truth in it, and there's some very important truth in it. If I say to you, yes, or if I say to you, yes, it means 2 different things, and you automatically know the difference. You're hardwired from before you were born to process the difference between those 2 sounds. So before the coffee break, there's another really important question I want you to answer. And that is, what are you conveying through the tones and the tunes and the content, but through the tones and the tunes and your body language, by the way? What are you conveying? What is it that we're picking up? What is it that a baby hears in its mother's voice that gives it the information that she's soothing them or playing with them? What are you conveying? Now, that's a question. What are you conveying? Anybody know?
Well, for a baby, it's familiarity, because it's the same voice they hear over again.
That's one thing. This is a familiar voice. But how do they know the difference between this is the familiar voice and she's playing with me, or this is the familiar voice and she's putting me to sleep?
The tone.
Sorry?
The tone.
Yes, they're listening to the tone of voice. What are you conveying through the tone of your voice? Again, your feelings? Yep, that's one thing. What else? Your intention, if you're doing a good job, yes.
State of mind.
Your state of mind and body. Your state, in NLP, we just call it your state. Your state is being conveyed through your voice. And the thing about your state is it's contagious. You must know people who walk in the room and it's like the sunshine walks in with them. And you want them to come to your dinner parties and you want them on your team. And then there are other people that walk into the room and it's like they've vacuumed up all the good feelings in the room. They're just a downer. Do you know people like that? I think we all do. There are some people who are just in a horrible state. Or people that walk in the room and everybody gets tense. I once had somebody on one of my group courses and I'm listening to his voice thinking, this guy sounds disabled. He sounds like he's in a wheelchair. Now, I'd never heard that before. I'd never thought about it. I'd never made any distinctions about that before. But I'm looking at an able-bodied person who, if I'd had my eyes closed, the picture in my mind would have been of a man in a wheelchair. And I had a long chat to him about it. And what it turned out was that his father was in a wheelchair. And his father also had asthma. And so what was going on is he'd learned his speaking style in a way that meant he was barely breathing. His voice was focused so high up that it sounded as if the lower part of his body wasn't really functioning. You can hear the state of a body in the voice too. And given that I've already heard that a couple of people here want to know how to feel more confident when they're standing up in front of a group of people, that's a state issue. And for those of you who've been on an NLP course, that's a very, very important part of every communication. What state are you going to be exuding for people to catch? I want to talk to you about the meta programs that are involved in your voice. And I've mentioned the first and most important one of all. And I've got to tell you that people sometimes come to me and they say, I want to work on my voice. And I can hear that the problem is a state problem. And I'm going to work with them on their state. And they go, when are we going to work with my voice? And I go, we are working with your voice. You see, you already have quite a few different voices. You don't always sound, well, I hope that you don't sound the same when you're making love as when you're in a business meeting. That would be a little bit strange, right? You already have two different voices. Hello, I'd like to introduce my new project. You know, you You don't know till you've tried it, that's true. So you already have more than one voice. And now that you're focusing your attention on it, you probably can think of different times. I bet you don't sound the same when you're really angry. Yesterday I was really angry. I took Richard's advice and went in and shouted at strangers. Richard said early on in my training, he said, you know, when you're angry, the last people you want to have a go at is the people who you love. And most people, they're the first people we pick on because they're going to put up with us and still love us. But I thought, no, I'm not going to shout at the people I love. So I went out and found a shop assistant and a person who was driving badly and shouted at them instead. Got it out of my system. And then, with the rest of my anger, I kept that for today. I kept and transformed it into energy. Because the wonderful thing about anger is it's just a big energy blast. And you know, when you talk to lots of people, you need more energy to sound the same. If I spoke to you one-to-one in exactly the same way as I'm speaking from the stage, it would be way too much. You'd be going, back off. People absorb the energy in your voice. They absorb sound waves. Let's talk a little bit about how sound works. Let's talk about how your voice works, the physiology of it. So you have vocal cords, and the vocal cords vibrate according to how much breath you pass over them. So when you don't put much breath over your vocal cords, this is the sound that happens. Okay, so for a start, my voice has gone a lot quieter. It hasn't got so much impact. One of the things a couple of you have said to me is, I want to have more impact. Well, that's very literal and physical in terms of a voice. You're going to need the sound waves to come out of you and hit other people and have the desired effect. If your sound waves do not reach the other person, first of all, they're going to have to work to listen to you. And most people will not work for long. If you're difficult to hear, most people will begin to switch off after a short while. So if you're too quiet and you have too little impact, then you're going to lose people's attention. So if you have to stand up for half an hour and give a presentation, that's not what you want to happen. Okay? You want to be able to continually not only have impact, but the kind of impact that you want. There isn't just one big thing called impact, but it's very useful to think about it in terms of the actual physical impact that you have on people with your sound waves. Because what happens is you pass the breath up from your lungs over your vocal cords, and your vocal cords work a little bit like, you know when you get a balloon and you pull the top of it and it goes, that noise is the air vibrating the rubber. And your vocal cords work the same as that. The air passes over your vocal cords and vibrates them, and that makes a sound, which sounds just eh. Okay? And then you shape those words with your mouth, with your tongue, with your teeth, with your jaw. All the shapes that you make here is what shapes the sound. And then the sound comes out of your mouth riding on the breath. The sound waves ride the airwaves. Have you heard the expression in space, nobody can hear you scream? Okay, that's because there's no air. If there's no air, the sound waves cannot travel well. They need the air to travel on. When you speak, your sound waves ride on your breath. So it is important to have some breath control. We're going to be working with that probably later today, because breath control is what controls the amount of sound, so therefore the volume. Then the way you shape your mouth controls the sound that comes out. To say E, you're doing something different from ooh. That's why the sound sounds different, because there's a different shape. You're squeezing it, you're manipulating the sound so that it makes has a different effect and makes different sounds. And I think this is really strange, but I have sometimes spent the entire 2-hour session with a new client who comes to work with me on voice, possibly stammering, teaching them when they're breathing in and breathing out. Now that may sound weird to you, I hope it does, but there are many people who can't tell the difference. Take a deep breath in. That means you feel the air going in, and breathe out, you feel the air going out. Some people really are so divorced from their connection with their bodies that they don't know the difference between. But when you're working with your voice, it's really important to know how to adjust how much breath you're using, and then to use that breath. Because if you don't use it, but you pass over lots of breath, this is the sound that you get. It's not helpful. One of the judgments people make about voices that are too quiet is that the person isn't being helpful, because that's what it feels like. You have to work to hear it. They are not guiding your state and your attention when they are speaking. And it's important to do that. When you're speaking, you want to help somebody out. You want to guide their attention, and you want to help manipulate their state so that they have the right filters to process your information in the way you want them to process it. So the first thing you want is to be able to get your sound to impact them, because the sound waves are actually bathing them and having a physical effect. And in the same way as your state is one of the meta programs for working with your voice, one of the umbrella things that you need to pay attention to, so is your physiology. Because just look at what happens when I change my body shape. So what happens to my voice when I talk to you like that? I've done nothing different at all other than move my body. Can you hear the difference? Yes. Can you hear the difference when I talk to you like that? Yes, of course you can. Everything that you do with your body affects the sound. Now, one of the places you get your voice from in the first place is your body shape. Okay? So you start off with a default size and shape. And the reason you hear little babies with little voices like that is because of the size of their vocal cords and the sizes of all the shapes inside them that make a sound more like this. It's just physical. And the stuff we're going to be doing here tomorrow is all physical. Today we're paying attention to state and all the meta-level programs, because they will make the biggest impact. And then we can make the little tweaks with different aspects of voice and the shapes that you use and how you're breathing. And that's going to give you many, many more options. Because I said to you at the beginning, there's no such thing as a wrong voice. There's no such thing as a bad voice. There's only an inappropriate voice. And the more ways that you can use your voice, the more choices you have. And for you NLPers, or anybody here, very few people here are even close to my age, I'm an old hippie. And so is Richard Bandler. And we both think that freedom and having lots of choices is a good thing, because in the 70s, that's what it was all about. We wanted to be free. I still think that's a really good idea. And in order to be free, one of the things is to have choices so that you can choose the one that's most appropriate and best for you at any one moment, so that you can get the responses that you want. I want you to have a little think about what's coming across just as a default you. What's you when you're just with your family? What's you when you just go into work in the morning to do, you know, the first everyday things that you do? Let's start there. I want to know what your strengths are, and I want to know what's easy for you, because those are the things we do not need to work on. They're a done deal. And you know what? Think about it. There's something good about every state. Just the same way that there isn't a wrong state, there's just an appropriate state. Sometimes it's appropriate to be angry, sometimes it's appropriate to be sad, sometimes it's appropriate to be excited. Just depends, doesn't it? But what are you generally, when you're not trying at all, when you're just hanging out with the people you know best? I want you to get into groups of 3 or 4 if necessary, and just talk a little bit about an ordinary day and find out what's coming across. But I want you to do something else as well. I want you to talk a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis, and I also want you to talk about a really good learning experience. When you've learned something that went in easily and that gave you a new skill. And if you can come up with one that's actually physical, that would be even better. You learnt to play tennis, you learnt to ride a bike, you learnt to drive a car, you learnt to tie your shoelaces. You all know the learning model, don't you, that starts with unconscious incompetence. Is there anybody here that doesn't know that? Don't you, Sandeep? Okay.
Just explain it.
Okay. Every piece of learning starts with a time that you didn't even know there was something to learn. So once upon a time, you didn't know there were even shoelaces to be tied. You lay in your cot or you sat in your high chair and mummy or whoever was looking after you just put your shoes on for you and tied the laces. And one day you noticed. So from being unconsciously incompetent, you suddenly realized this is going on and I don't know how to do it. And at that point, you became consciously incompetent. You knew you couldn't do it. So you had to learn a skill. Somebody showed you. You put this lace over that lace, you twirl it round like that, you do this, pull, and it's a bow. And you had to do it for yourself over and over again in order to get good at it. So you became, firstly, consciously competent. You had to think about it. You had to really look and think and probably talk to yourself, this one over that one, pull it round, pull it round, inside your head, and do it at the same time. And then after you'd done it a number of times, it became really easy. In fact, it became so easy that I bet every one of you here could tie up your shoelaces while watching TV. Okay? Because your fingers know how to do it now. There are lots of competencies that you have that you don't have to think about. You don't have to think when you go to open a door, how does this door handle work? You just look at it and automatically know it's going to go this way, this way, this way, or this way, and you just do it and open the door. When you walk down the road, you don't have to think about every step. But there was a time when you did. So what's the thing that goes between conscious competence and unconscious competence? What goes between conscious incompetence and conscious competence is a skill. You have to learn the skill. But how do you get to be unconsciously competent with a new skill?
Practice.
Practice. That's all it is. You just have to do it a lot. And what I want for you is for you to learn the skills here and start the practice. But when you leave here, for you to carry on practicing, so that when I talk to you in 6 months' time, you go, oh yeah, God, oh yeah, I'm doing that. Because you've already forgotten that you're doing it, you're just doing it. So I want you to think about how you learn, what makes it really easy for you to learn a new skill, what's the feeling that you get when you're learning a new skill. How do you feel about it? What's the attitude that you had when you were learning that new skill? Were you stressed and worried? Were you relaxed and playful? What got that new skill easily embedded? So there's 2 things you're going to be talking about. One is just an ordinary day, and the other is a really good learning experience. That's what you're going to be talking about. What you're going to be listening to is whether there's a difference in the way that the two subjects are conveyed. A lot of people breathe only at the top of their lungs, and I want you to listen to what that sounds like if I only use the top of my lungs with which to speak. So now I'm only breathing at the top of my lungs, and I want you to assess from listening to this whether I've lost some of the impact. Maybe this would be useful when I need to sound like I need more help, I don't know. But I want you to hear, first of all, there's very little I can do. I haven't got the broad area to work from because I'm only breathing up here. Has a completely different sound. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? Okay, it's really different. And if that sounds like you, then you know what you're doing. We're going to fix it in one go by taking the breath down. Your voice, I'm going to show you how to center your voice later on. But first of all, let's get the breathing right. Put your hands on this area, anywhere at the bottom of your rib cage, so that you really get in touch with the muscle movement under your hands. And what I want you to do is to blow gently all the air out of your lungs so that you have no air in your lungs at all. Ready? And I want you to feel the squeeze as all the air goes. You may need to relax your shoulders, but keep squeezing it until you've got no air left. And feel the tightness, and then relax. Because when you relax, the air will come in again. Now, is there anybody here who couldn't feel the muscles squeezing there? You all could, couldn't you? Okay. So just do that a few times now. This exercise is in your manual, so you don't need to write any of it down. Just breathe all the way out again so that you feel yourself squeeze the air out. And then relax it back in. Do it at your own speed. And keep your attention very focused on the sensation in your body. Close your eyes if it feels easier. And just focus on how it feels. What are you doing with your muscles? Is the air warmer or cooler on the in-breath or out-breath? So you really start to notice the process of breathing. If it makes you feel like yawning, that's a good thing. And it's a message from your body to say, I like this feeling of clearing the old air out. Have more, have more. That's what yawning's about, get more air in. Anybody who wants to yawn and stretch on this course, please go ahead, do it. It's really good for you. Yawn and stretch, if you feel like it. We're going to be talking about yawning and how useful it is, but notice the feeling of breathing and take those deep breaths. Let your lungs work at the bottom and really focus your attention on it. Now, you don't have to go all the way squeezing all the air out. Once you know the muscle movement and you're in touch with it, you just carry on using those muscles. It's okay to relax and close your eyes. I haven't finished. So as you continue to focus on your breathing, and you probably need to sit up straight because if you're bent over, you're blocking the bottom part of your lungs. As you notice what it feels like to breathe in this deep way, I want you to do something else as well. So keep your focus very much with your breathing. But now a very important part of relaxing. I want you to listen to everything you can hear. So I know you can hear the sound of my voice. But not only that. In fact, there's a way even of listening to silence. And when you really start listening, you can hear the air conditioning. You can even hear the silence between the words. Really listening now. You have a little mechanism inside your ear called a hammer and anvil. It's one of the smallest bones in your body. And when it's in listening mode, that's a different position for when you're inside chatting away to yourself. Listening out now as much as you can hear. Notice if you can hear anything through the doors and the walls into the corridor outside. Is anyone walking past? So you're breathing and listening and aware of your body weight. And now there's a fourth and very important thing I want you to do. And that is to put your attention into where it feels like your center is. Maybe somewhere near your solar plexus, maybe lower down. But I love the name solar plexus because it's all about sunshine. I want you to imagine in that center of you a bright, beautiful, golden sun. I want you to imagine that sun inside you shining brighter and brighter and radiating the light through your body. Imagine, really use your imagination as you imagine it shining up into your chest, shining up on the inside of your throat, up into your skull. Imagine that light bathing your brain, bathing your cells. Imagine it shining all the way down on the inside of your arms and into your stomach and your hips and down through your legs, radiating and shining brighter, brighter, until you're absolutely filled up with that shining. Imagine it creeping out of the pores of your skin, coming out from underneath under your toenails. Imagine that as I'm looking at you, I can see you sitting there shining. Imagine what you'd look like if there was a glow around you because of this wonderful internal sunshine. Imagine that when you open your eyes, a light is going to be shining out from your eyes, so that when you look at somebody else, you're one of the shining people. You're one of the ones that comes in the room and lights it up, shining from your center more and more, radiating it through you and imagining it coming out through the pores of your skin as you continue to breathe and listen. How relaxed do you feel now, and can you relax even more? Double it. Shine even brighter, double it. And feel how good it feels just to let go of everything and just listen to the sounds in the room around you. Feel yourself here, resting in the chair, being in touch with your body weight, being in touch with your center, shining and feeling relaxed. So that's a very easy, quick way to get rid of adrenaline. And even though none of you was particularly nervous, so you won't know the impact of it when you're really nervous, if you really breathe and listen and shine, if you're feeling nervous, it just disappears. And I remember I'd been teaching that exercise for about 5 years when I had something difficult happen. Somebody was trying to mount a court case against me, and it wasn't going to go anywhere, but it was scary. And I was lying in bed, unable to sleep, and the thoughts were going round and round in my head, and I hadn't done any NLP training at that point, and I didn't know what to do with the feelings and the thoughts, and I was lying there really tense. And I suddenly thought, oh, I've been doing this exercise with people for 5 years. Dr. McCurtain taught it to me. So I thought, well, I'll just try it. And honestly, I didn't expect it to work, which is a little bit funny, because I'd been teaching it to other people for 5 years, very convinced that it was working. But when it came to it, doing it for myself, I wasn't convinced. It took 3 minutes, and I started to fall asleep. And after that, I just thought, oh God, that's a really good exercise for me. And you You have to decide for you whether it feels effective. But if it does, then practice it. Because the more that you practice it, the quicker you can do it. Now I can go into that relaxed state in 30 seconds because my body knows it. It knows the state, and all I have to do is that first breath out, listen to the sounds in the world around me, and I immediately start to relax. So what I'd like you to do now is just get a little bit of energy in your body. So I'm going to ask you to stand up, have a big stretch and a big yawn and stamp your feet. Stretch up, stretch back. That's it. And then I want you to go and find 2 other people in here and talk to them and listen to your own voice. So go up to them, talk to them about how that exercise was for you, and listen to your own voice. I want you to calibrate whether it sounds different when your body is more relaxed, okay? And then after that, people, you can go to lunch and I'll see you back here at 2:30. So speak to 2 people, then you can give me a round of applause and go to lunch. So 2 people and listen to your voice. Tap them on the shoulder, Teresa. Just tap someone on the shoulder and go, oi!